The USSR used to be a thing, and it's not a thing anymore. So when that happened, there was a huge power vacuum, and all of the corrupt rich people that had their industries got to be more corrupt, power their way into these huge monopolies. What happened as a result of that was the group of oligarchs that we know and love today. Obviously, I'm talking about Russia. This story is about an Epstein adjacent group of people, but they're not the normal characters. I never put all these pieces together, so I'm going to give you all the facts. You put your own conclusion together. It might be a little bit long, but I'll do my best. Hit 2x or don't watch, I guess. The guy we're going to talk about, his name is Victor Busselberg. I'm going to call him Victor B because I don't like saying that name. His niche, they all have a niche, he was the metal man, aluminum specifically. He was the oligarch of aluminum, the metal guy. So he was also part of a super villain group called the Alpha Group. While he was part of that group, they sold off an arm of this conglomerate to BP. And on that transaction alone, he made $28 billion. So he's doing fine. He's doing well for himself. Around that same time, he also became a majority shareholder of the Bank of Cyprus, which is very odd since he is not from Cyprus, nor is he a banker. And the reason was because Cyprus is a bank that a lot of Russians were using because it's a bridge between East and West. Obviously, with sanctions and whatnot, getting into Western markets is difficult, and the Bank of Cyprus is very private. You can get an account from anywhere. You don't have to be there to do it. Also, you can, I don't want to call it laundering money, but you can clean it. You can take your money and you can put it in the Bank of Cyprus, and then another person from your country, say that country is Russia maybe, can take that money out and pull it back into Russia, and then it looks like you're getting a foreign investment instead of a trafficking fund or something similar. So Bank of Cyprus goes under in 2013, around the same time that Greece did, partially because it was adjacent to Greece and partially because their banking sector was bigger than their whole GDP by a lot. And that's probably because 40% of their banking was Russians. Just coincidence. The whole system goes under. They owe all these people money. They don't have any money because the bank is gone. So what they did was they gave these people equity shares in their banking system. And then separately, another man, he basically had a fundraiser. They called it a bail-in. He went and raised a bunch of funds so they could keep living their money laundering dreams. As a result of that, Victor V becomes a majority shareholder. Bank of Cyprus has huge ties to two institutions specifically. One I'm going to mispronounce right now. It's called Hapoalim. It's a Tel Aviv transaction service, basically. So they take their Russian rubles and they trade them into shekels. And the other one is JP Morgan. That should be self-explanatory. JP Morgan opened a headquarters in Tel Aviv in the year 2000. Surveillance, technology, that sector. They have a special team just for them. JP Morgan was fined $290 million for the Epstein Victim Restitution Fund and another $75 million for 5 counts to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Those 5 counts were all exactly what you would expect them to be for the Epstein Island situation. When JP Morgan finally kicked Epstein off of their books because they really had no choice, despite their best efforts for 10 years not to, they kick him out in 2013. He immediately goes to Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank also operates huge in Tel Aviv, okay? Their address in Tel Aviv is 46 Rothschild Boulevard. They were also fined after this Epstein ordeal because he still had 9 accounts open after he died. They got $150 million for the same reasons as JP Morgan: compliance failures, money laundering, supporting crime. They had to pay another $75 million to the Victim Restitution Fund. They separately let our commander-in-chief hundreds of millions of dollars for 20 years when nobody else would because his credit was crap. Who was in charge of Deutsche Bank this entire time, giving risky loans to someone who was such a bad steward of said assets? That man's name is Joseph Eckerman, and Joseph was in charge of Deutsche Bank from 2002 to 2012. He immediately after became the chairman of the Bank of Cyprus in 2014, which our friend Victor V owns the majority share of. He's also on the boards of, currently, the World Economic Forum and a company called Renova Management, owned by Victor V. Victor's sanctioned, by the way. Not supposed to do business in the United States at all at the time. So his cousin Andrew works for a company called Columbus Nova. And Columbus Nova manages assets for Renova, which is a terrible look because this is a U.S. financial services firm managing money for a sanctioned Russian oligarch's company. But they're cousins, everything's probably fine. Andrew, the cousin, also hired Michael Cohen, Trump's attorney, who was in trouble separately for a different set of Russian circumstances. They had over 1,000 electronic exchanges after the Trump election in 2016. So now Victor is the BlackRock of the Bank of Cyprus, and Joseph, the Deutsch guy, becomes chairman. When that happened, a second person named Wilbur Ross became the vice chair. After the election in 2016, Wilbur Ross left, and he went to work as the U.S. Commerce Secretary for Trump 1.0. Trump 2.0 has a different Commerce Secretary, and that is Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick used to work for Cantor Fitzgerald between 1983 and 2025. Basically, his whole adult life has been with this company, and he got to the tippy top, HBIC. He lost 683 employees on September 11th. He was not at work that day, so that was lucky for him. And he also famously never saw his disturbing neighbor, Jeffrey, after that one day in 2005, until he remembered in 2026 when all of the Epstein files came out and proved that he was a filthy liar. Cantor Fitzgerald is a financial services firm. They have a subsidiary that is called Tether Reserves. And Tether Reserves is a weird company. Tether Reserves is a fund that holds cryptocurrency that is tied to the dollar. One coin, $1, always will be that way. It will go up and down with inflation. That's how it's designed. They also hold $94 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds. China buys our bonds when we go into debt. This company owns $94 billion, which is 1.6% of all outstanding Treasury bonds. Now, can we verify that they have this $94 billion of our money? No, because it's a private company. But our trustworthy friend Howard said, and I quote, "I've seen the assets. Trust me, it's there. So no worries. You don't need to worry about that." When he quit Cantor Fitzgerald, his sons are now the chair and vice chair of the company that he worked for 80,000 years. And he is now the Secretary of Commerce, which means he is in charge of regulating this business. I'm sure they're all honest and it's on the up and up. It's fine. He's a trustworthy guy. After Tether produces this US-based crypto stablecoin, takes $94 billion of our money and has it safe, probably. The administration 2.0 seemed to really ramp up their enthusiasm for cryptocurrency. I'm sure it was unrelated, but I do remember a lot of meme coins, a Melania coin, some sort of pump and dump scheme, vaguely. In January 2025, so right before inauguration, 2.0, Tether decides they're going to relocate their world headquarters to El Salvador because that's where people move their businesses to when they went to succeed. They moved to El Salvador, and then coincidentally, El Salvador got this huge CCOT contract in March of 2025 after they implemented a cryptocurrency-based economic policy when Bukele, the crazy, took over. I'm sure that was all just happenstance, though. 2 months apart. What are the odds that two different secretaries of commerce under the same president would both be tied to the same banks, the same Russian oligarchs, and the same deceased pedophile? You let me know how much coincidence you think this is. I know there was no collusion, and there's never been any Russians involved with anything, but there seem to be a lot of Russians around for that to be true. Let me know what you think. Okay, bye.